I know you have heard tales of giants, tales like that of Bumba, the giants who vomited sun, moon, and stars into existence. Agwu in the powerful Igbo kingdom, he was said to be tall as palm tree and with legs that shook the earth when he walked. But this story is one I know firsthand because I was there when it all played out. I woke up to the sound of my brother screaming. It was still dark, but the moon lit up the village just enough for me to see what was happening. A massive hand, the size of a cowhide drum, had grabbed his leg and was dragging him out of the hut. He clawed at the dirt, his fingers leaving deep grooves, but the thing was too strong. I ran after him, barefoot, heart pounding. I didn't know what I was doing, just running, chasing. Then I saw it. The giant. It stood at the edge of the trees, hunched over, its skin dark like the earth, its hair matted with twigs and leaves. Its eyes glowed like embers in the night. My brother thrashed in its grip, kicking, screaming. The giant barely noticed. I froze. The stories were true. The elders spoke of the giants, Enfuni, the old ones, who lived in the hills before our ancestors came. They were not gods, nor demons, just men, if men could be as tall as trees and as strong as elephants. They hunted us, stole our food, and sometimes they took people. No one ever saw those people again. For years, the warriors tried to fight them. Spears barely pierced their skin. Fire only angered them. So the elders devised a different plan. A plan that would turn the giants against themselves. I watched as the hunters crept through the trees, unseen. I knew what they had done, what they had planted in the giant's mind. They had whispered in the night, spread rumors between the hills, told one giant that another had stolen its food, its home, its mate. And it had worked. The night before we had heard them fighting. Deep, rumbling voices shaking the earth, fists like boulders crashing into flesh. Now, this giant was alone, desperate, hungry. That's why it was taking my brother. But the hunters had one more trick. A deep horn sounded from the hills, a sound the giants feared. It was the call of war. More giants would come. This one, alone and vulnerable, knew it had no chance. It let out a snarl, then it dropped my brother and ran. That was the last time I ever saw one. By the next season, the giants were gone, driven away by their own paranoia. The warriors never lifted a spear, never spilled a drop of blood. They just whispered. And the giants listened. Now when I walk through the hills, I wonder, do they still live beyond the mountains watching us? Do they remember the trick that broke them? And if they do, will they ever return? The giants did return. Not as hungry shadows in the night, but as warriors. It started with the throne. Our kingdom had always been ruled by men, but long ago, before the time of my grandfather's grandfather, there was a giant king, Enfuni Mkulu, the first king. He was said to have been the strongest, his voice like thunder, his hands large enough to crush a man in one grip. But the smaller people, the ones we now call our ancestors, rose against him. Not by strength, not by war, but by trickery. They whispered doubts into his mind, turned his own kind against him. The giants fought among themselves, their great numbers dwindling, until the survivors fled into the mountains, leaving the throne to men. For generations, we thought they were gone forever. But one night, after the horn sounded for a gathering in the king's court, a shadow fell over the great palace. The sound of heavy footsteps made the ground tremble. And then we saw him. A giant, taller than any hut, broader than 3 men, his body draped in tattered animal skins. He walked straight into the palace, pushing aside the guards like they were children. He did not attack. He did not speak in anger. He simply raised his hand and pointed at the throne. "I have come for what is mine," he said. The elders gasped. The warriors gripped their spears. But the king, old and wise, only nodded. And so, it was decided, a battle would be fought. Not a war of bloodshed, but of kingship. A duel between man and giant. The king's son, Prince Mzamo, would fight for his father's throne. The giant, who called himself Duna, would fight to reclaim what his ancestors lost. No one believed the prince could win. The fight was set in the great arena, a wide open space where cattle were usually slaughtered. The people gathered in silence, waiting. The giant stood on one side, bare-chested, his skin like dark stone. The prince stood on the other, holding only a spear. The horn blew. The fight began. Duna lunged, his fist swinging down like a falling tree. Mzamo rolled aside just in time, the ground cracking where the giant's fist landed. The prince was fast, weaving between the giant's legs, slicing at his ankles, his calves, small wounds, but enough to make Duna roar in frustration. The people cheered. Maybe, just maybe, the prince could win. But then, Duna kicked. A brutal, sweeping motion. The prince was flung through the air like a leaf in the wind. He hit the ground hard, his spear skidding away. The crowd fell silent. The prince did not rise. Duna turned to the elders. "It is over," he declared. "The throne belongs to me." The elders looked at each other. Then, the oldest of them, a woman named Mandlovu, stepped forward. "No," she said. "Not yet." Duna frowned. "I have one." Mandlovu raised a hand. "The fight is not just about strength. King must be wise. A king must be just. A king must win the hearts of his people." Duna hesitated. This was not what he expected. Mandlovu continued. "You say you have one, but do the people accept you? Will they kneel before you? Will they sing your name?" Duna turned to the crowd, expecting fear. But instead, he saw defiance. The people did not bow. They did not kneel. They did not chant his name. They only stared. Silent. Waiting. Duna's face twisted in anger. He had beaten the prince, but he had not won. The whispers began again. The same whispers that had destroyed his ancestors. They will never follow him. He is not one of us. He will be alone. Duna looked at his great hands, at his own people's history. He understood, too late, that no matter how strong he was, a king without loyalty was no king at all. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Back to the mountains. Back to exile. That was the last time a giant challenged the throne. But when the wind howls through the hills at night, I still wonder, do they dream of coming back?